Welcome, everyone. We're excited that you're all here with us today. We have a fabulous panel of women who are members of the Institute of Transportation Engineers. And we're going to talk with them this morning a little bit about their experiences and how they ended up in the roles that they're in. There will be an opportunity for you guys to ask questions. There's a question pod that you'll see within the WebEx toolbar. So feel free to chime in and ask your questions at any point. We'll about midway through the hour, we'll stop and start answering the questions from all of you. So be thinking of what you would like to ask and feel free to enter it at any time. So as I mentioned, this is an event that is being hosted by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. My name is Stephanie Ivey, and I am part of the STEM committee for ITE, and I am a professor at the University of Memphis in civil engineering, and I'm going to be facilitating the discussion with all of our fabulous panelists. So I'm going to start just by introducing each one so that you'll know who we have with us today, and then I'll kick it off with the first question, and we'll go ahead and hear from each of them. So our panelists today are Marsha Anderson Bomar, and she's the Assistant General Manager and Capital Programs Delivery for MARTA in Atlanta. That's the public transit agency. And then we have Lindsay Klein, who's president of Imperial Traffic and Data Collection. We have Susanna Seth, the project manager of traffic design and operations for Harris County Engineering Department. And then Gabby Tassin, who is the deputy director of engineering for Alliance Transportation Group. So again, let's welcome all of our panelists and welcome to all of our attendees. We're excited that you're all here. So I'm going to start by asking each of our panelists to introduce themselves and share the career progression that they have gone through to get to their current role. So we will start with Marsha, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn things over to you, Marsha.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm so delighted to be with everybody today. Some of my absolute favorite people are on the panel today, so it's fun to share this time with all of you. So I'm going to do the short version because obviously I've been in the profession for a very long time, but I would say the last 20 years, I had my own planning and engineering firm for much of that time, and we work nationally and internationally on anything to do with traffic and transportation, land development, and all the support services that go along with that. Also had a company that did data collection. So Lindsay, we have to talk, but great, exciting times. When I sold my company, I decided to take a short break and work for a community improvement district, which is a self-taxing district where I got to implement some really impactful projects for the local community, infrastructure projects, of course. And then I was contacted by the general manager, the CEO for MARTA, to come and join his team. And I was thrilled to do that. For the first time in about 20 years, MARTA is actually getting ready to expand our system. So in addition to our traditional state of good repair work, we have quite a few rail, light rail, bus rapid transit, arterial rapid transit, streetcar, all kinds of different technologies we're going to be rolling out, and our first electric bus program. So a lot of exciting stuff going on.
Very cool. All right, Lindsay, let's hear from you.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Lindsay Klein. I am president of Imperial Traffic and Data Collection. I started my career back after graduating from the University of Delaware in 2006, where I gained 10 years of experience working as a traffic signal engineer, doing signal design and electrical plans and some modeling and traffic signal software. I really enjoyed that experience that I received doing that type of work. There were a couple projects that have swayed me from moving on in my career, and that's when I decided to start a traffic data collection company. So we are based in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, where we count cars for the foundation of engineering projects. So it's really an exciting opportunity for us to help as an extension of engineering teams to collect data and provide that to engineers to use that in their design work. and studying how traffic will be impacted throughout the region and roadway networks. So I oversee 9 staff, and we do a variety of services in New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. And our company is only 4 years old, so we are growing fast, and it's an exciting time to lead my staff and really just be on the cutting edge of technology and supporting our engineers within the region.
Thank you. All right, Susanna.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Susanna Seth. I am with the Harris County Traffic Design and Operation. I'm one of the project managers there, and I have been there since October of last year. Prior to that, I was in the consultant side, which the private consultant side. So making this switch since October, and it's been really great. I graduated from Washington University back in 2006. And a lot of professors that I had during the time really like they're adjunct professors, so they teach and work and have brought in a lot of world project and experience, and that really got me interested in transportation, and it's been a really great experience. So yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Gabby.
Hey guys, I'm Gabby. I'm with Alliance Transportation Group. I am a private consultant, and we do a lot of planning and engineering. I'm the deputy director of engineering, and so with that, we do a lot of transportation focused stuff. So roadway designs and traffic design and drainage associated with those two. I went to school at Tulane University in New Orleans, and I don't know if you guys remember back in 2005, there was a pretty bad hurricane called Hurricane Katrina. And at that time, I was really interested in becoming a hurricane engineer, which was kind of odd. But I took a job in a private consulting firm that was doing a contract with FEMA to rebuild the city, and they put me for 2 weeks on loan to the traffic department of how to reconstruct the traffic for the city, and 2 weeks has then turned into 15 years, sorry. But it's been quite the ride. I'm very blessed in that at the beginning of my career, I was able to go out in the field. So I was a civil engineer that was going from signal to signal, from project to project, and I got to learn how things operate. And that is really ingrained in me. I love to learn. I am a learner at heart. And so for the first 5 years of my career, I did a lot of that. And that really helped me when I made the move into more of a design and planning focused type of a job. But ever since then, I've been working on things with intelligent transportation systems. That's kind of morphed into some of the awesome new connected vehicles that we kind of keep talking about, automated vehicles that we keep talking about. I'm with you, Lindsay. The data collection is where it's at. If you don't have good data collection, it's the basis of everything that we do. I've been blessed to be involved on that. Really awesome new different types of getting ways of getting data through COVID, because everything has changed with that. And so what I really have been blessed with throughout my career is that I have been able to learn a little bit of everything as I have progressed in my career. So signal design, a lot of modeling, which basically looks like a video game. It looks like a video game, and with these video games, we're able to see how things are going to operate, provide solutions to the community. I love to work and give back to the community as well. All the ladies that you see here, I've worked with them through the Institute of Transportation Engineers in trying to make an impact with the future leaders, but also in some of the problems that we've had. Thank you again for having me here. I'm very excited.
Well, we're glad that you're here. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is just how everybody ended up where they are. So let's do a show of hands of our panelists. Who knew when they were in middle or high school that they wanted to be a transportation engineer? So this is one of the things that we always want to share with students, is that it's okay if you don't know exactly what you want to do, or that if it changes over time. So so one of the things I thought would be really cool to hear from everybody about is what they thought they wanted to be in middle and high school, and then when did their path change to focus more on transportation. So Marsha, let's start with you again. I think you're muted. We still can't hear you.
Okay. So
There you go.
I knew, oh, I didn't mute me. I don't know who did. Let's see. No, I'm not showing up as muted. Can you not hear me?
We can hear you now.
Can you hear me? Okay, thanks. I knew that I wanted to be an engineer when I was in 6th grade. I wasn't actually sure I knew what an engineer was, but I knew I wanted to be one. I was really, okay, great. I had a phenomenal 6th grade teacher who saw that I had an aptitude for math, and she pushed me and pushed me and pushed me to really do something with it. And it was a very long time ago when I was in the 6th grade. And back then, the really two prominent career paths were math teacher or actuary. Actuary did not sound like anything I cared to pursue. Math teacher, maybe, but there was something intriguing about the idea of being an engineer. And as I progressed into high school, and I was still very, very active on the math team and all things around math and science, my dad actually went to work for the New York State Department of Transportation. And they had an incident where there was a very old highway in Lower Manhattan, the West Side Highway, and a truck actually fell through the deck. And of course, they had to shut it down, and it was years of figuring out what they were going to do to replace it. So I was kind of at his elbow, hearing all his stories, and he was the liaison among the city, state, and federal government. So I got kind of a real good behind the scenes exposure to at least a slice of what transportation could be all about. And as they say, the rest is history. I went to college. I was nervous about jumping right into engineering, so I went to an engineering school, but my first degree is in math. And then I immediately turned around and went back and got my degrees in civil engineering. So not a straight line. Nothing in my life has been a straight line, but a lot of opportunity to kind of look around and see the practical side of things, and then figure out who did that stuff, and then figure out how I could fit into it. So a little snapshot of how I got where I am today.
Very cool. Lindsay, what about you?
So in high school, I knew I wanted to blow stuff up. I was like a crazy pyromaniac. I loved to make fires out back, and I knew that that was kind of where I wanted to go. So I loved chemistry, I loved science and math, and they were just languages that I understood really well, right? Like I could balance a chemical reaction equation, but I couldn't write a sentence in English. So I went to University of Delaware to study chemical engineering, actually. And my path was a series of failures, and it continued to be after college. But I studied chemical engineering for a year. At Delaware, the graduation rate was about 40%. So 60% of engineers dropped out, and I was one of them. I went on sophomore year to study electrical engineering. I went to the business school to see about finance. And I realized that all of my chemical engineering credits wouldn't transfer to the business school. My GPA at the time was awful. Freshman year, I had like a 1.7 GPA, but my parents told me not to quit. I did learn a lot that year, but I did start my junior year as a civil engineer. I ended up taking a lot of classes just to kind of fill my curriculum that I needed. And one of the classes I took was an upper level transportation class. It just kind of fell into the work of where it would level with my course structure. And I took the class, and I actually really loved it. The professor was from Europe, and he was on sabbatical at Delaware, and he was, working with students from Delaware, and I really just enjoyed the creativity of modeling traffic and the the artsy nature of doing a little bit more flexible type of work rather than structures or something that's more static. So I really enjoyed that type of work and being able to have a little bit more ability to manipulate the data that we were looking at. So that's kind of when I decided transportation was my thing, was through that class, and I kind of stuck it out, and I took a couple more transportation classes, and it really solidified my decision to go for traffic.
That's great. All right, Susanna.
So when I was in middle school, high school, actually, I want to be a teacher. Then I took on a part-time job as a tutor, for little elementary school math and reading. I'm like, I just don't have the patience for little kids. So I was pretty good at math, and so I know that's where I will be going. And then I have two older sisters. One at the time in high school, trying to figure out what I want to study. One is a math major, the other was an industrial engineer. So they kind of guide me that direction. It's like you should try engineering. So I went into college. First 2 years, I wasn't sure what engineering I would study, so I just kind of took all the requirement courses, and then I had a professor, one of my professors in my sophomore year. She's an English professor, history, and she had done construction work in St. Louis at the time, and she's really well connected. So she got me connected with some of her former colleagues, and I had an internship at the St. Louis Airport expansion project. And with that, I'm like, okay, this is really cool. Civil engineering, gotta be out in the field, driving the field, checking out all the progress that is going on with the construction site. So I'm like, okay, I want to do civil. So I went in my junior year, I started as a civil, and then I had one intro to transportation class. And with that, I was like, okay, I want to do this. This is so cool because, with all the modeling, and like I said earlier, a lot of my professors at the time, they're adjunct professors. So they have a lot of real-world experience that they brought into the classroom, not just like all the theory. So I'm like, oh yeah, like things that I understand, and then I see it out in the, when I'm driving around, I'm like, okay, I want to do this. This is really cool. So I went in and finished my bachelor, and then stay for another year to get my master in transportation engineering. So I would say teachers and professors have a lot of impact on what and my sisters too. They're actually four of my sisters. I have four of us girls. 3 of us are engineers and 1 math major. So yeah, that's how I got into transportation engineering.
That's neat. I have 2 sisters also, and one of my sisters is also an engineer. So.
Yeah, we're making up the math major.
My mom's a math major, so maybe that's what it was. Gabby, how about you?
Yeah, so I always knew that I wanted to give back to the community. I just didn't know how. So the first thing that was kind of obvious to me was being a doctor, because that's kind of like the books, what they used to show you, right? Is like a doctor helps people. So, but it was funny because I wanted to be, it was really complicated, which if any of you know me, I have this thing where sometimes I complicate things, and it was totally complicated because I was like, I want to be a doctor, but I want to be like a brain surgeon, but not a brain surgeon. Like, I want to invent this machine that we can put people's brain in and see the last 5 minutes of their life. And this is going to help solve a lot of mysteries and, allow people to see what they were thinking about the last minutes, and all sorts of research things that I said that I wanted to do with the brain. And so my grandfather was actually a civil engineer, graduated from LSU, go Tigers. And he used to bring me around a lot of his jobs, his projects. And he kind of knew that I had that scientific mind, because he tried to explain it to me that what I wanted was something research and more engineering related, not necessarily a doctor per se. And so he'd make these fun little games, you know, like he would build a lot of roads, and he built this road with a bridge, and he used to tell me like, oh, I'm building this bridge so that we don't get caught by pirates and things like that. It was so much fun, guys. It was just really a lot of fun. I learned how to drive in one of those big tractor, you know, things that moves a lot of the soil. And so with that, I kind of started leaning more into engineering, which is funny because my favorite subjects was always science. Like chemistry, guys, I got an A in chemistry. I hardly even had to study. I loved it. It was really normal to me. Math, that was a little bit harder. Not that I was not a good student, but I did have to study every day, and that is 100% true. You cannot be good at math without putting in the work. And so right around 11th grade, I started noticing that I really liked to help people get from point A to point B. And that's really, no matter what type of engineer you are, that's really what an engineer does, is you have a problem and you have a solution that you want to get to. You got to bridge the gap between them. So I decided to go into engineering, but I also got a degree in physics. So I had that kind of science thing that I still had to do. So when I went to college, it was really interesting because the way that you learn science, the math that goes with the science, is a little bit different than the math that goes with civil engineering, because in one, you have to really learn how to do theory and a lot of math. And in civil engineering, you can grab a lot of formulas and just use those formulas. But it gave me an interesting perspective because I knew where these formulas were. And if at some point I couldn't find that formula, I knew how to get one that would work for me. And so as I was telling you guys earlier, Hurricane Katrina threw a pretty big wrench in my education, actually, because Tulane University was closed my senior year. And so, of course, my family got really happy because they transferred me to LSU, because I was already the black sheep of the family for not going to LSU. But long story short, when we got to LSU had certain requirements, which included you having taken transportation as a course. Well, there wasn't a transportation teacher available, so they kind of waived it and said you can take this other another class. And so I chose hurricane engineering because I just thought that's what I wanted to do. So I graduated and I was like, I want to do site development and get all the sites ready so that they can be protected against hurricanes. So I started working in that, got put in loan, like I said, for the traffic group. And I noticed that the transportation field has one thing that almost none of the other fields of civil engineering had. And it's what I call the human element. In other civil engineering branches, you don't really deal with that, right? And it's a big deal to say, I'm going to design this, or I'm going to recommend this, or I'm going to gather this data that's going to make an impact to somebody that may result in them not getting somewhere safely. And so I realized what better of an impact I can make than staying in a field where that happens. But also, remember, I really wanted to get from point A to point B. And so that kind of checked all the boxes for me, and it made it not boring, because the human element adds that complexity to your designs, and you will never be bored. Everything is always a challenge. Every design is different depending on the environment that you are. Every mitigation strategy or a solution, if you will, is different because of that human element. And so that was the reason why I decided to, like I tell a lot of people, I drank the Kool-Aid, the traffic Kool-Aid, and I never looked back. I needed to make a difference, and that's how it was.
That's great. So now let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about a project that was really the most exciting for you, and if you could share a little bit about the project and what it was about it that made it so interesting for you. And Marsha, let's go back to you.
Sure. So you may remember that in 1996, we had a little event in Atlanta called the Olympics. And I was very, very fortunate to be involved in quite a few different projects and programs around getting ready for and developing infrastructure for the Olympics. And one of the things that I think Gabby and I share in common, and probably with the others as well, I love community. And I've done a ton of public engagement and outreach work, and it's one of my favorite parts. But at the beginning of the planning for the Olympic Park, they brought together several design teams, and they had them in different sections of a large space in the convention center. And each team was basically told to use your imagination and come up with your concept of what we should do for this park. Well, I was the only engineer in the room. So I actually had the great pleasure of going from team to team to team to give them feedback on constructability or impact on community or impact on businesses or whatever it was, but through the engineering lens. And so I felt really honored and privileged to get to touch what turned out to be such an impactful project. It totally transformed, our downtown area and continues to do so even today. And just interesting little tidbit. So you just never know how things are going to tie together. So that was in the early 90s that I started working on that. And that was one of the early projects that I did as Street Smarts, which was my engineering company. And the fellow who was leading all of this was an architect named Oscar Harris, who is an absolutely brilliant architect, had his own firm. And, on and off over the years, we worked together on many things. And then a number of years ago, he's even older than I am, and he retired. He's also an artist, so now he's painting and building sculptures and doing great creative things. But I had lunch with him just before the pandemic hit. One of my big projects at MARTA is to transform our central train station. It's called 5 Points. It's where our north, south, and east-west lines crisscross. And I learned at that lunch that he was the original architect for that station. And he was brought in because his specialty in college was safety through design. So we had yet another linkage in common with each other. And I was trying to actually change my background. I was going to put up, I found the original sketch that he did, the cross section, and back in those days, everything was hand drawings. And I have the original drawing that he did. And so, you just never know. Something impacts your decision. It inspires you. And somehow it bubbles up from time to time, and it connects you with other amazing experiences.
That's awesome. Lindsay, what about you?
So some of the interesting projects that I've worked on started when I was at the consulting company before I left my company to create what we do now. But there are some projects that we work on for signal retiming. So there's a lot of signal retiming contracts that are out right now. And in the younger stages of my career, I worked as project manager, project engineer on these type of projects. So what our teams will do is we will go out on a corridor. So a corridor is a segment of road that has multiple signals across with cross-section streets, and we will eventually attempt to time them so we get better progression for vehicle flow. So in my career, I would go out, we would get the data, and I would model that data in synchro. So like Gabby has said, it's like a video game where you put in your streets and you put in your signal timings and you put in the volumes of the road and you model it and you determine where we can make improvements with the signal timing. What intersections need more green time to make sure that when you get from intersection 1 and you go to intersection 2 and you go to intersection 3, you're not stopping. So the premise of these signal retiming contracts that we are currently working on now at Imperial, doing a lot of data collection, is to improve flow. So, so part of our job at Imperial is, one, to collect the data. Our project team will model that data in Synchro. We'll determine what type of timings we need to implement in the field. With those new timings that we generate, we'll go out in the field and actually put them into controllers. So I open up a controller, I plug in the timings that we need, and our team, you know, optimizes those timings based on field conditions. So we're in the field, we're looking at real-time information, and we're fixing those timings to improve progression for the community and motorists. And these type of projects are really rewarding. We can provide improvements along corridors, upwards of 20 to 30% travel time reduction. So your commute home from soccer practice is now 3 minutes less because we retimed your signal. So these type of improvements are rewarding, in my opinion. We reduce emissions, we get you home to dinner quicker, you can start your homework and get in your shower sooner. So knowing that we're providing that improvement to every motorist that's using the roadway is really something that I enjoy, because I feel like I give back minute by minute for motorists that are out there. So those are really, that's my favorite. I always put that project up on a pedestal because it's something tangible today and tomorrow, and we don't really need to redo any pavement or change any curb lines, and the effort of which the engineers do internally really help. There's a great cost savings when we work hard and improve signal timings.
That's great. Susanna, what about you?
I would say one of the most memorable project I had worked on was the TxDOT speed study. Gosh, that was 8 years ago. So TxDOT has this really large project where they had divided portions of it to different consultants to do speed study on their freeway and farmers FM road, farmers to market road, and to bump it up to 75 miles per hour. So I was the field lead on that project. So I get to drive with another teammate all over East Texas to check out those sites. And I got to see a lot of Texas that I would never thought I would get to see. Some of them are very rural area that don't get much traffic to start with. But it apply a lot of engineering judgment on that particular project, because I got to pick the site where to do the speed study, and we have to drive the corridor to the proposed speed limit to see if it's comfortable. So it's you know, a lot of judgment calls. Okay, I'm going 75 miles. Am I comfortable driving on this road? And it was fun because in the beginning we rented a car because the company didn't have a car. So we rented a car and we have to park on the side of the road, like a freeway. And it's a black Suburban, looked just like a cop car. So, you know, with the radar gun, people like speeding, like slowing down. Like, no, people just go your normal speed. Oh, I need to capture how fast you're going. And so, later on, we got those signs that you can stick on the car. So let people know I'm not a cop. You know, I'm just a company doing some work here. So we collected, I did that for 10 months, so all over East Texas with another teammate. And it was a really great experience because we were able to deliver the project on time, under budget, and my boss was happy and the client was happy. So it was one that definitely on top of my list. And the other thing is that we get a letter from TxDOT saying that we're doing a speed study. So if any case, not that I was speeding, but any case we got pulled over doing the study, I'll be like, yeah, we're doing a study for TxDOT. So I should have kept that letter, but that was a lot of fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah. Gabby, what's your favorite project?
Oh, of course, I'm going to say that's a hard question for me. Truly is, because I've been involved in so many different types of projects, but and I've been listening to all of these wonderful ladies talk about their wonderful projects, and I'm just like, yeah, I had a project just like that. That was awesome. And of course, I'm going to probably say that my favorite projects. I'm going to say two, if you don't mind. So. One of my favorite type of projects is safety. I tell people all the time I break for safety. Safety is my #1 priority. And if anybody ever gives you a lot of grief about something, all you have to do is bring up the word safety, and I promise you, you will probably be on the winning argument side of the argument. But I actually, as an EIT, which is basically when you graduate from college, is you are learning under a licensed professional engineer. I was blessed to be a part of this project in Louisiana for a sinkhole that had happened at a salt mine, and there was all sorts of environmental problems, and there was the sinkhole started going through this roadway, and it was in a southern part of Louisiana where there was really only one road. And so they're like, Gabby, we want you to come up with a detour route. And I'm like, to where? there's no other roadways. And so it was kind of putting all of these puzzle pieces together. And the biggest concern was that these kids couldn't get to school. And funny thing is that how many of us have woken up in the morning and like, I don't want to go to school? And I promise you, you're not going to say that when you can't go to school. And these kids really wanted to get to school, and they couldn't. And so there was a lot of public involvement. The human element was really big. Well, the most impactful thing of that project was that during one of our public meetings where we were talking about the different things that we could do and how we're trying to make sure that we're not impacting the environment, this very famous environmental lawyer showed up. Her name is Erin Brockovich. And yeah, it was cool. It was cool. As engineers, you don't really sometimes get to meet really cool people like that. And it was awesome to see her in action and to see her fighting for what's right in the community, and some of the stuff that she actually even opened up our minds for. So from both sides. So it was, it definitely wasn't the biggest project that I've been involved in, but it was really cool from that perspective. And the second project that I wanted to say is not a project per se, but it's just the ability or the opportunity actually that I've had to lead my current group. We have a group of 45 engineers within my group, and I am very blessed to be called their supervisor. They are a great couple of engineers. They're so smart. I mean, I tell them all the time, I'm like, if I was in college during your time, oh my gosh, I could not compete with you guys. You guys are so awesome. Day in and day out, they do the most amazing designs, and just being a part of their group has been one of the most rewarding projects and tasks that I've ever taken in my life.
Thank you for sharing that. So I think there is a question in already. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see it in any of the pods. So while we are waiting for that to come through so that we can ask it, I'm going to ask one other question. And those of you in the audience that have questions, go ahead and start entering those into the question pod now, because we'll go through this next question fairly quickly. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is what college was like for you, and was it easy? And if so, what do you think you did in middle or high school that really helped prepare you? And if it wasn't, what did you do while you were in college to make sure that you succeeded? And I know some of you have touched on this a little bit already, and Lindsay, you in particular. So I think we'll actually start with you on this one and let you kind of fill in the gaps on that.
Sure. So as you know, I've already expressed that my GPA wasn't great. Freshman year, I was in the marching band. And I also had a dorm life that was probably not that positive. I had 3 other girls in my dorm room. So being a chemical engineer, being in marching band, having such demands on my schedule really impacted my GPA. I had to advocate for myself to make changes. So my dorm life was with 3 other girls, and their majors weren't as strenuous as a chemical engineering degree. So they were spending some time out with friends and chatting on the phone, and it's a big box that, I couldn't get my work done. So I ended up finding myself going to the library and studying on the 3rd floor in my little space to keep myself focused. And I really utilized the library throughout my time at Delaware, really just to keep my head down, because I had to change my ways. My parents gave me a second chance, and I was very grateful for that. So, as my career progressed, failure just became part of my story. But being able to find avenues such as the library, we also created a study group. So there were other civil engineering transplants within my my graduation year that came in from biology and chemistry, and I think there was one other person from chemie that came in. So we formed this small little study pod of older civil engineers, because we all had to go back and take statics after we took dynamics. It was just a messed up schedule, but we were able to kind of confide in each other and really pull it together as a team. And everybody graduated on time together. So, being able to leverage your resources and find ways to make it happen, that was pretty much how I succeeded and how I graduated on time. I also convinced my parents I needed to do a study abroad trip, winter session. I had to go to Australia to get these 3 credits to graduate on time. So I really made sure that when my path in my education changed and I knew I had to pivot, that I projected ahead and made those fine tweaks to my schedule to ensure that graduation happened on time and I didn't fall behind, and I really held myself accountable. So that's how I found college, and kind of my path here.
Thank you. Susanna, what about you?
I was my study habit pretty much stay on throughout my high school and then college career. But it didn't start. I mean, like Lindsay is saying, the adjustment from high school to college was a little different. The first 2 years, I didn't really have a social life per se. I spent more time studying because, I was the first generation up and going to college, so there's a little bit. My parents didn't say it, but there's a lot of pressure. Getting a good college degree and have a better life, and so studying was a big part of it. And then I went to my civil department, where I went to was this really small group. So we would get together. I worked at a computer lab, so we just have a table in the back. All of us will come together and do homework together. And that's when I realized that those kind of collaboration are very important, because we all Zoom out with doing class at some point. So having that group of friends that we work together and what did you hear this, or what was the equation, or which graph did he said we're supposed to use. So using that collaboration to get through those years are very crucial. And I think that really helped me, as I progress in my professional career, is that collaboration. No one person will know all the answer, but you just need to know who might know the answer. So yeah.
That's a really great point. Gabby?
Yeah, so my answer is a little bit different, of course. I grew up in Honduras, born and raised all the way up to 12th grade. I was the daughter of American citizens that were stationed in Honduras. And so I went to a very different type of school. It was associated with American school, so most everybody there was in the same boat as me, a daughter of American citizens. And the cool thing that I did about my school and my school taught me is to just stick with the problem until you're able to find a solution. You stick with it and find a path forward. I took every advanced placement, or I guess it's called AP classes that I could. So I took English AP and I took calculus as opposed to advanced math. That I felt like helped me my first 2 years of college because I was a little bit smart. I retook the same classes, but I was doing it because I wanted to get an A, because I was already struggling with a lot of organic chemistry and physics stuff that I had to do. Because I will tell you guys, if anybody decides to go into engineering, your first 2 years are probably going to be a little bit more challenging, but it's on purpose. I'll let you in on that little secret. They want you to be able to learn to stick with a problem and solve it. Don't give up. We've all gone through it. Every single lady on this phone call has probably gone through it. I did. I'm with Lindsay. I wasn't necessarily the one with the best GPA, but the thing that also did help me was that throughout even in middle school and high school, I did a lot of extracurricular activities. And not that I was going to be the next Mia Hamm, which is a very famous soccer player, and I was in the soccer team. But what it did is it helped me become a planner of my time. And I think that doing that and getting used to being able to schedule out your day, sticking to a schedule, making yourself accountable to, I got to go to practice, I got to go do this, and not forcing yourself to do that 100% helped me prepare for college, where mom and dad weren't there. They weren't telling me when I needed to do homework. They weren't telling me what I needed to eat. They weren't doing any of that. And back then, guess what? There was no FaceTime. Cell phones, it was so expensive to talk on the phone if you were overseas. So I barely was able to talk to my family, but I was able to carry through a lot of those things from high school into college. Now, what are some lessons learned? Things that my 38-year-old self wishes she could tell the 18-year-old. I wish I wouldn't have skipped out on orientation because I found a couple of friends and I just decided to socialize a little bit that week because I didn't have a class. And so I think that ended up resulting in me not learning about certain programs that the university has to help you out later on. So things like career fairs or help writing your resume, or like I don't ever remember going to talk to my advisor. I just picked my classes and went about my day. I picked it so that I could balance out my GPA. I knew that I needed to keep a certain GPA to be still involved in the soccer team. So I never went to talk to him. And so I never knew what was out there. Like, could I have gone to Australia or Paris or whatever for an out of the country summer, which I did have to take because I had two majors and I had 6 years to do it in. I ended up doing it in 5, but I just didn't really realize all of the things that I could have known. I see a lot of our new EITs that come work for us, and they're involved in some really amazing things. And I'm just like looking back, like, oh my gosh, I talked to some of the people I graduated with. I'm like, I didn't even know that you could do this. And they're like, Gabby, yes, there was that. And, I'm like, man, I wish I would have just taken a little bit of my time to look into that, because being a well-rounded, balanced individual is very important.
Thank you. And I think we'll stop with that question there because we have several questions from the audience. And Marsha, one of them is specifically for you.
Yeah.
So we'll come back around to you there.
Okay. Well, and I'll tie in what I would have answered for the previous question because it relates directly to the question that we received. So when I was in high school, when I was going through elementary school, junior high school, and high school, they had a program for kids that they decided were smart kids, and they pushed us through faster. So I actually graduated from high school when I was 16 years old. So socially, I was very out of step with my peers when I got to college. I wanted to go to an engineering school, but it was too far to go to the public engineering school. It would have been 2 hours commute each way every day because my parents wouldn't let me, because I was 16, they wouldn't let me be a resident on campus. So I picked an engineering college, a small college that was closer to home, but it was a private school, so I had to pay tuition. Turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. I joined what at the time they called a work-study program, and I worked 25 hours a week. I had all kinds of crazy jobs. I worked a switchboard, I worked a printing press, I sold popcorn at a movie theater. I mean, I did all kinds of crazy things, transcribed a book for a professor, worked as a key punch operator. But as Gabby said, taught me time management. It really caused me to appreciate the opportunity that I had. And so, I worked really, really hard to do well. I don't know what I was thinking, my first semester, I took 21 credit hours and worked 25 hours a week. Somehow I had my best GPA that semester. It was pretty downhill from there. But, we used to call them the weeding out classes. The calculus and physics and chemistry classes at the college level are really, 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 really hard. And I really had to bust it to be able to get through those classes. And even if it takes you longer to get through school, if you have the opportunity to work while you're going to school, if that helps you be able to afford to go to school. I did get a little bit of scholarship money, but I paid most of my tuition and my food and my transportation all by myself. But I came out with not only a degree, but I had 4 years of proven reliability and job experience that was invaluable as I went out into the world to compete against other people to find that first really important job. So to me, that in its own crazy way was kind of a gift. So I wanted to share that because I know that there was a question about, if you don't have all the benefits that some other people might have, how do you make it work? And if it's something that's important to you, you talk to a lot of people. I went around and spoke to a lot of professors to see if they had little research projects. I did a lot of data collection. I stood back in those days, everything was paper. Stood at the train station handing out postcards and let people filling out forms and counted things using a clipboard, and whatever somebody would let me do so I could help pay my school expenses, I did, and it really informed the whole rest of my career. And I see the question about opportunities at MARTA and at MARTA. So I think a lot of people don't understand the really wide breadth of things that are done by transit agencies. You think of buses, you think of trains. There is a ton of civil engineering. We have a structural engineering group. We have a civil engineering group. We have a number of other engineering groups housed within my department, because when we're laying track, or we're working with a developer who wants to build an adjacent development, or we build a lot of facilities. We have about 160 facilities. We have 38 stations. There is a boatload of engineering in there, all different kinds of engineering. So I would contend that every transit agency has a very, very broad range of opportunities. And quite frankly, if you're an engineer, you have the training to really pivot and do almost any kind of engineering. You can learn things that are not necessarily the degree that you got. That's what I found over the years. So yeah, the transit world is a really exciting place to be. I love it. And so I encourage you to go check out what they do. One of the things that I always encourage is to go, and I apologize for my dog in the background. I'm that person. Call people and ask to do an informational interview. Call somebody like me and say, I want to talk to you. What are the real opportunities? How do I find out what types of disciplines or degrees you need to find a job in the XYZ organization? When you're not actually looking for a job, people are pretty open to having those kinds of conversations.
Thanks so much. So we only have about 5 minutes left, but we have 2 really good questions from the audience. So I want to make sure we get to each of these. So I'll ask each panelist to keep their responses pretty short. But the first one is, what adversities have you faced as a woman in the engineering field? Marsha, let's start with you.
For much of my career, I was the only one. And so I didn't have a partner in crime. I didn't have an advocate. I was by myself. And, fortunately, I have a strong enough personality now. I didn't at the beginning. I was pretty meek at the beginning, but I had to develop those chops to be able to stand up for myself to be successful.
That's a really good point. Lindsay?
I faced some adversities with my previous employer. You have a baby, you go out on maternity leave, you return at a limited hours, and then they think you're incapable of, fulfilling the needs of a man, fulfilling the roles that other engineers are giving. They feel that your time is not well served. I was working part-time after I had children. I was down to 20 hours, and they felt that I wasn't contributing enough, but I wasn't spending my time at the coffee maker or the water cooler. Feeling disrespected, not given the opportunities to work from home or, oversee projects that maybe my peers were given because I was a female, because I had a family, because I was trying to raise that part of my life. I was limited in growth, and I was really stunted as, an older engineer, which is why I went out and started my own business. So I was not as respected, and I was not as appreciated. And because of that, I'm here today as a president of my own company. So I definitely faced it, and I dealt with it, and I slammed the door, and I said, I don't need you, you need me more than I need you. And I waved goodbye, and the rest is history. So I guess my advice on that is, if you're not feeling as much of a team member as you think you should, and you're probably right, don't let it bury you. Move on, find a new path, find an employer that will appreciate you as a female and what you bring to the table.
Thank you. Susanna?
I have been pretty lucky in terms, I always have, throughout college and my career, there's always another female engineer right next to me that we can bounce off ideas with each other. But one advice I would have is for the students is that you have to look out for yourself. If you see an opportunity, you need to tell your employer, like, I want to do this. This is important to me. And I mean, the worst is they say no, but you need to advocate for yourself and tell them what you want, because otherwise they're busy with their other projects. They might not know what you're looking for. So be sure to force yourself.
Thanks. Gabby?
I was muted. I have unfortunately dealt with a lot from this respect, and what can I say about it? I agree with Marsha and now I have my dog. Sorry. I agree with Marsha and Lindsay and Susanna in that the best thing that you can do is advocate for yourself and believe in yourself. Nobody else is going to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. And know that you're a smart person that can do anything as long as you put the work in. And also, if you don't like something, get involved, make a difference for other people that are coming down the line. So Susanna and I have been working on a committee for women here in Texas, and women engineers, to provide that, I guess, partner in crime, if you will, like using Marsha's word, and it all came from a meeting that actually Marsha had invited me to, where it was like I realized there were other women that were in the same situation. This part of my answer also goes back to what advice would I give people to achieve your goal? I have this thing that when people tell me no, that means that's a no for now, right? And so this all started in college, where I had a professor that told me that I would never be an engineer, that I should just be a Susie homemaker, that I should be, you know, just somebody that just does something else. And I remember just being so upset coming out of his office, and I'll be like, I'll show you. And I just want to say, don't wait. Don't wait. Don't just sit there and take it. Don't wait. If you have a goal, get involved. And that's what I was saying before. Like, if my 30-year-old person could tell my 18-year-old, get involved in the college, know what opportunities are there. Like Marsha said, call somebody, talk to them. If they don't know, they're going to point you towards the right direction. In general, people are really nice when it comes to that stuff. And I just didn't really realize that until now. A lot of us have gone through a lot of these things. And so when you ask them, we will be able to help you. Just don't give up.
Right.
Perfect. And that's actually the question that we were going to close with, and we're out of time. So I'm going to ask each of the other panelists to give us just a quick 10-second response. But for students that might be struggling or not have the support at home, live in poverty, you know, have all these different things that they feel like are against them, what kind of advice would you give to them to achieve their goals?
So I'll give a quick answer, because I have a young lady who's interning with me now. She's the first person in her family to go to college. She had no clue how to navigate the college world, but she's very hardworking. I met her through my son, who said, Mom, you need to take a look at her and help her. So we brought her in, and you know, she talked to a bunch of people in the office, and we found a good match for her. And she is going gangbusters. Even through COVID, she's just doing great work. And I think she's found her niche, what she wants to do, you know, when she graduates. But reach out to people. Somebody, maybe the first person won't say yes, but somewhere along the way, somebody will say yes. Come on in, let's talk, and let's figure out a path for you.
Lindsay?
Yeah, finding that mentor, you know, that mentor is going to advocate for you. They're going to give you that clear path, but also being vulnerable and allowing yourself to fail, to really being able to pivot and find the right answer. So my biggest piece of advice is, you know, don't let that little voice inside your head convince you that you can't do it, because that's the voice that's going to tell you that you can't do it. So change your mindset, think positively, know that, you know, if you have the means to do it or you don't, you're going to brand yourself. You are going to put yourself as the point of sale. It's not the business you work for, but it's going to be the things that you can do. So really put your foot forward. Make yourself stronger today by maybe making the wrong choices, because tomorrow you'll be that much better and you'll have a clearer idea of what decisions you need to make. So good luck. And if anybody needs anything, they can reach out to me for sure. My email is available.
Thank you so much. And Susanna, we'll close with you.
Yes, I would say similar to what Marsha and Lindsay was saying, reach out to someone, talk to your teacher, your advisor, tell them what you want to do, or if you don't know what you want to do, still talk to them. Maybe they can provide you with a contact that you can call and reach out. And like Lindsay was saying, if anybody wants to learn more about engineering, I'll be more than happy to share my contact. And if not engineering, anything that I can help with.
Thank you so much to all of you. This was really great. I really appreciate all of you taking the time to and being willing to share your stories with the audience. And thank you to all of the people that attended. We're glad that you were here, and we hope you learned a lot. And thank you to ITE for organizing this.